Welcome to Safety Spectrum, your environmental health and safety connection. This program is a presentation of the Michigan Safety Conference. For almost a century, the annual conference has provided credible educational opportunities and valuable support to the safety and health practitioner by offering 120 instructional programs along with exhibits highlighting the latest in safety equipment, instrumentation, and demonstrations. To learn more about the conference, please find us at safetyconference.org. Welcome to Safety Spectrum. I'm your host, Sheila Ide. This program is sponsored by the Michigan Safety Conference, and our topic today is Find Your Safety. With the challenges of constantly changing and dynamic workplace, the role of safety management has never been more critical. The Michigan Safety Conference provides assistance to EHS practitioners by offering the latest in education, technology, and products. Education tracks include agriculture, chemical, construction, emergency management and fire safety, environmental, ergonomics, healthcare, industrial hygiene, metal fab, Michigan OSHA, public utilities, risk management, security, transportation, and we also have a student chapter. Our guest, Zach Hansmann, is the Occupational Safety Compliance Officer at Michigan State University and the principal of the Hansmann Group. He also teaches construction management at MSU and is an authorized OSHA outreach instructor. Zach maintains the Certified Safety Professional, Certified Hazardous Materials Manager, and Associate in Risk Management Professional designations. He received his bachelor's in human biology and a master's in construction management from Michigan State University. He achieved his PhD in planning, design, and construction by completing his dissertation on owner involvement and construction safety. Zach is the current president of the Michigan Safety Conference, and he's also a member of our construction division. Thanks for joining me today, Zach.
Thanks for having me, Sheila. It's great to be here as the president of the conference and look forward to talking with you.
Okay. Would you take just a minute and talk about your employer and your duties for Michigan State?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm the Occupational Safety Compliance Officer for Michigan State University. I'm in our Environmental Health and Safety group here at the university. In my role, I'm responsible for articulating the university's compliance programs for MIOSHA. We use those to keep our students, staff, faculty, and visitors safe when they're on campus. It's really a fascinating place to work. We have about 26,000 employees, and I'm pretty sure that we have about 25,000 different job titles. We have everything on campus that you can imagine, so we do a little bit of everything every day. Really keeps us on our toes and makes for a lot of variety in the workplace.
I think people don't realize how many activities are going on at a university. You're constantly building something, right?
Yeah, we're constantly building something. We have a power plant on campus. We have north of 50,000 students, every research project under the sun. So really, very often, we'll get a call from a researcher asking us to evaluate their new research project, whether it's building lithium-ion batteries that are going to perform better or a different feed for a cow to eliminate methane emissions. They're just really, you never know what's going to happen on any given day. So it really is a diverse place to work with a lot of various professionals. From a safety perspective, our department has about 45 professionals in different disciplines. And so we have a lot of expertise, which is really helpful for a safety professional. We can go to somebody with radiation knowledge. We can go to somebody with occupational knowledge, chemical, biological. So we have a big group with a lot of things going on.
Don't you also have the accelerator there?
We do have the facility for rare isotope beams. I actually was the construction safety manager on that project, so I'm intimately familiar with it. It's a really cool facility. It's funded by the Department of Energy, and it's construction and operated by the university. There's about 1,500 users, the last number I heard, that are signing up to come do their research at our facility. They do the research here for a couple of weeks, running their experiment, and then they take the data back home and analyze it and create these discoveries that help us get smaller cell phones because of microcomputing, understand the cosmos. A big thing right now is harvesting isotopes for use in medical research, hoping to cure cancer with some exotic isotope. So there's a lot of things out there that are really cool happening on the campus.
Cutting edge, absolutely. So the president of the Michigan Safety Conference always has a theme for the conference, and yours is kind of intriguing. Find your safety. You want to tell me about that? What's your definition?
Well, the definition of find your safety is really after talking to so many people and talking to all the volunteers that I work with, all the attendees, other professionals, they all told me something different about the conference. And it just struck me that to all these different people, the conference meant something slightly different. So find your safety was really a find your safety blank. And the theme is really that you can find something on safety that means something to you, that applies to you, that you can use in your workplace or in your career at any given time. The first thing that comes to my mind is find your safety knowledge. We are an educational organization, and our primary mission is to improve occupational outcomes in the workplace by educating our professionals within the state. So people come to find their safety knowledge. There's something for everything in all those domains that you listed in the beginning of our talk here. We have expertise and we have so much to share as an organization. Network, find your safety network is another big part. There's 2,000 people from the state of Michigan that come to this conference, and you can get to know a lot of people doing the same thing that you are doing. We benchmark with our peers and we get to know those people that we can reach out to when it matters. Find your safety innovation is another one. There are so many things changing in our field. We have vendors, over 200 vendors that come and show us the cutting edge technologies that we rely on. And it's our job as safety professionals to deliver those technologies and those products to the people doing the work on the front line. So we really serve a critical role there. One of the really unique things that we have here is you can find your safety regulator. MyOSHA has been a huge partner. In fact, last year we formally signed an alliance with Michigan OSHA, and we work very closely with all of OSHA, including the CET, the Consultation, Education, and Training Division. It's really unique in a state plan state where we have access to our regulator like this, and they have a big presence at the conference and they can come there. And more importantly, or as importantly, you can find your safety inspiration and your motivation. Coming to the conference is a great way to connect with all of the other people out here and really be recharged after gathering, talking about safety, doing these kinds of things. But Find Your Safety is more than just the conference. It's also about what the profession can mean to you and all the different reasons that we do the very important work that we do. The biggest thing that we do as safety professionals, to put it bluntly, is we prevent bad things from happening. Every day, we do the work that helps us deliver all these things in the industries that we work in safely. We stop them. Look at the trends of injuries and fatalities in the workplace since the creation of OSHA in 1970. Everybody's familiar with what that line looks like. It's been a very, very precipitous decline and something that we're still working on every single day today. Right? There's nothing better than to walk through somebody's job process and point out something that could help them do it more efficiently, do it more safe. So that's really a very, very important thing. And that goes with empowering that worker, right? We give people the tools that they need to speak up, to protect themselves, to represent themselves, and really do what they have to do to defend themselves in the workplace even. It's fulfilling and challenging work, right? There's a lot of diversity in what we do. On any given day, I'm an engineer, I'm a lawyer working in the regulation side, I do finance, I do risk management, I do purchasing, I do research. So we get to do so much in this profession, and it is so fulfilling part of the industry that we work in.
What's so hard though is often our employers are measuring the negative, not the
Yeah.
leading indicators. It's hard to prove what didn't happen because of what you did. And I appreciate that you expanded on the fact that we can wear a lot of different hats. And we know the moral aspect of people not getting injured or killed, but we also have to understand the dollars and cents aspects. That we've got to be able to sell the fact that this particular piece of equipment or scaffold or what have you will work better in the long run, even though there's initial upfront cost. So we need to be able to walk both of those roads. And oddly enough, we have a wide variety of class tracks, educational tracks. And actually, the agricultural section is doing a program on finding your safety. So on a farm, you think about there have been a lot of confined spaces fatalities
Mhm.
based on silos and work that they do with grain and that and animal injuries. So I mean, every division, every track has proponents that work in that field. And here's a place where you can see all of them at once. So what are some of the challenges safety pros might encounter when trying to find their safety?
Well, I think you hit the nail on your head on the head in your comment there is we can sometimes be victims of our own success. I mentioned the precipitous drop in fatalities and injuries since the creation of OSHA. We can often be so good at preventing some of these injuries that people think that we've created a safe workplace and then we can be done. But safety never stops. And we need to constantly be able to show value in the work that we do and the additional cost that we add to the process of doing work. When through our efforts, bad things don't happen, that becomes hard to quantify, right? And you mentioned it perfectly. If something doesn't happen, it's hard to measure that. Right, we prevented X injuries today, and we need to find other better ways to show that we are performing better. We benchmark across industry, we benchmark over time, we benchmark as much as we can to show that we are improving the workplace. I think there's a lot of perspectives, right? We talk about safety climate and safety culture as other ways to measure safety performance and the impact of safety professionals. Those really are new ways or expanding ways that we can show the value of safety and the safety efforts of our professionals.
And as we move forward, there are several classes from different divisions about culture,
Mhm.
culture, behaviors, making leaders out of first line supervisors, that sort of thing, and empowering people. So we have many classes that would address that. Kind of interesting when you think about it, that there's so many ways to look at it. The field has evolved tremendously since the 70s, but every day there's a new challenge. And depending on how much training you've done, it may not be enough because I can recalling my own experience where we do massive amounts of training in confined space entry, and we still had an incident where two sewer workers went down in a sewer. Both of them survived, but again, you're like, where? What did I miss? What happened here? Type of things. So there's always a challenge of keeping the safety training relevant and education relevant to people as they do it. And they come up with different things. Different things happen. Processes change, product changes, changes how you deal with it from a safety health standpoint. So, what would you suggest for those struggling to improve safety within their organization? Where do they start?
I think that there's two big parts to that I focus on and that I try to communicate. The first thing is management buy-in is so critical. It's so critical that it's a primary pillar in the ISO 45001 system for safety management. It really, you cannot get too far without management fully supporting and being committed to providing that safe and healthy workplace. The other part of that is the flip side of that coin is the labor engagement, right? We need to talk to our workforce, get feedback from them, and understand the issues that they're dealing with. A lot of times when we talk about safety culture, we look at a misalignment of perspectives on what the issues are facing the organization from top management and the workforce. So I think aligning those two aspects, management's perspectives and the perspectives of labor, really helps us to understand where the issues are. Management has to fully support, and labor has to communicate back to management realistically and honestly about what are preventing workers from working in a safe manner, or what forces are there, whether it's time and production pressure. We have to get this work done. There's no other way to do it. We have to work safely, whatever that might be. We ultimately, when we get to that level of communication between the top and bottom of the organization, we have reduced financial risk, right? Whether it's the risk of injuries, the risk of uh, disruptions to the process, whatever that might be, we can get better practices and better working conditions down. So both ends of the organization benefit from those types of alignments and those types of efforts to communicate. Everybody can contribute to safety in those types of environments. And frankly, the trades and the people doing the work are the experts. They're the ones who are really working and doing it every single day. And so they know what the issues are, they know what the hazards are. And if we can connect with them, open up with them, make sure that they feel comfortable communicating and safe communicating with us, we can serve them better and make their work better. That relationship is critical, and trust has to be earned in those situations. Um, for me personally, I'm constantly thinking about my active listening skills. And I think all of us managers and all of us safety professionals, we constantly are like, well, I can fix that. Guess what? I have this. But listening and truly hearing from the people is one of those things that's always, for me personally, a big part of what I try to do in the field. I want to hear them explain the process to me, and I try my very best to not interject immediately with a corrective action or a new product or some other change to their process. So again, to circle back, management commitment and worker engagement, I think, are the two primary drivers of improving safety culture and safety performance.
It is so true what you said to play off what you were talking about. People have to feel secure in things that they bring forward to management are not going to be dismissed or they'll get in trouble or they're telling on somebody or something. But that is so key. You've got to build that relationship first before you're going to have people willing to do it. Now, it's interesting at the conference, we have, like, take construction, for example. Of course, we're going to have programs on public utility damages and multi-employer work sites, but they also give you some of the basics. They're going to talk about medical surveillance, heat stress, and are people aware that suicide is a big issue in the construction industry? And there have been whole programs set up to address that. People don't think about construction workers as being other than tough people, but they have
And
some problems.
I've spent a big part of my career in construction, and construction is really an interesting case study, if you will, because each construction project, by very definition, is temporary and unique. And so if you talk to somebody that's been in construction long enough, we've all been on projects that have had great safety culture, and we've all been on projects that have not. And so, if you're working for a single employer in the same space, I don't think it's as dynamic as somebody moving to a different construction site every 18 months. So you talk to construction folks, both in the safety management field and the trades and management of construction. We've all experienced the extremes, and I think you could talk to just about everybody, and they all prefer to be on a collaborative project where they do feel safe to bring up, safe and protected to bring up those safety concerns. That they feel like they can say, hey, we can't get this level of work done because of safety concerns, and that they won't be retaliated against or pushed back on. So the construction industry is really interesting because I think everybody gets enough experience in different projects that they've been around a few bad ones, and they understand the impact of those negative environments.
Well, do you think the first line supervisor is really key to the whole program? I kind of think they have
Well,
the most influence.
and one of those things that we really push is line management responsibility for safety. And the supervisor has to be involved and has to facilitate that. But who sets the tone for the supervisors? Right. And that's going to go up to management. And so it starts with management, but obviously that communication from management down to labor with all the different intermediate steps has to be continuous and it has to be consistent. So, when you study safety culture, a lot of times you'll look at upper level management, you'll look at mid-level management, you'll look at field supervision, you look at all the different strata of people on a job site. And sometimes you can see a real disconnect between layer one and layer two, or between layer four and layer five, or somewhere in between. So it does involve the supervisor, absolutely, but it has to be from the top and all the way down. Even if the supervisor isn't empowered by management, what's the supervisor really going to be able to change if the supervisor is held to that standard?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of when I first started my career was in the public utility business, and you don't have a supervisor on every job. People are very highly trained. They've gone to apprenticeship. They're very highly educated in what they do, and they often work alone or with one other person or two other people, and they have to be very much aware of their own safety and be able to turn things in that they find are not safe. And I thought that was kind of interesting in the public utility world. So every employee really is empowered if you do it right. We have one gentleman talking from consumers industry, Doug Hill, who talks about situational awareness, how every job you take on, even though you've done it 50 times before, you stop and you walk through it. You do your risk analysis because every job is not exactly the same. You'd think putting up a pole is putting up a pole. No, there's always other issues you got to look at. So that's another class that's of interest, I think.
Yeah,
So,
it's real.
Zach, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's really interesting. I do a training session on multi-employer work sites, and one of my questions I always ask right at the beginning is, who's responsible for safety? And invariably, the audience will always have answers like yourself, or uh, you know, the supervisor or whatever. And it really is the employer, right? My OSHA and OSHA are based on an employer-employee relationship. And there's about 30 answers we get to that question, and it's never the first answer. But I think that we all have a lot of responsibility for our own safety, and each worker has to be aware. Coworkers, I see a lot of times we need to be able to talk to each other, frankly. The supervisor can talk to the employee, all these other entities, but coworkers, looking out for your fellow worker and making sure that the person you're working with doesn't have themselves in an unsafe situation or doing an unsafe act. So there's, everybody is responsible for safety, and that's a great answer as we move forward.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you, what motivates you to be involved in the Michigan Safety Conference? We talked about a lot of theoretical stuff and some practical stuff. So what motivates you? What do you think Michigan Safety Conference does for you?
Well, and I love, that's one of the reasons why I love my theme this year is it truly, I've checked all of those boxes. Um, this has been one of the most rewarding organizations to be part of in my entire career. I truly can rely on anybody in our organization to help me if I need help. I love that I have a strong network of safety leaders across the state of Michigan who I reach out to regularly. If I have an issue, if I'm stumped at work, if I'm thinking that there's got to be a better way to do this, or there's got to be a better product out there, I can rely on that network of people that I've made connections with via the Michigan Safety Conference. I have access to a lot of different people in a lot of different domains that I definitely would not have just organically made that connection with throughout the process of my career. Um, this is an organization that's made out of people that are truly there and truly care. And so it's really been my favorite part of the conference, is getting together with this group year over year.
Yeah, that's what I found too, as I was a newbie in the safety world going to the conference for 2 days. Was immersed in things that I was dealing with every day, from big companies, small companies, and you kind of feel like the Lone Ranger. Back in the day, you were like the only safety person for a lot of people. So it was great. You could call up the chief safety officer at Oldsmobile, say, or Ford, and just ask them, "Have you ever had this program before?" And they go, "Yeah, here, we'll send it to you." Wow. Pre-tested, pre-written, the whole thing. So that's one great thing. 2 days of networking is just so worth it, I'll tell you. So how can safety pros stay on top of innovation, and what are your go-tos?
I honestly think having an established relationship with a wide and diverse range of vendors, one of the big things that is constantly happening is there are new solutions and new products constantly being created to fix problems or to address problems that we're running into. We always see post-accident, issues where why did this happen? Well, they didn't have this, or their equipment wouldn't allow that. So let's pick on fall protection. This is one of my favorite things out in the field when I run into a worker who's trying very hard, but they're not tied off right, or they're not doing something correctly. And I pull them down carefully. I get the supervisor to come over and we start having a conversation. And that conversation goes something like, why were you not tied off? You were over 6 feet. You knew that you were exposed. You knew that the expectation on this job is that you tie off 100% of the time over 6 feet at a minimum. And they say, well, and they continue to give me a reason why they had to be up in the air without using it. Usually it's, I had to install the drywall around the ductwork, or I had to run this conduit up on this area in the joist system, and I couldn't get the scissor lift all the way up. I always tell them, look, I would rather you come to me with the challenge, and let's find a product out there that's going to address that. Let's find a product and a procedure that will keep you safe. And sometimes, and I've called a number of my vendor contacts before and said, hey, I've got a strange one for you. Let's look at this, and I need a piece of equipment that's going to do X, Y, and Z. And sure enough, they say, well, it's going to take a little bit for us to get it, but it will be here next Thursday, and it does X, Y, and Z for you. And showing that to that worker is really a rewarding thing to say, look, I see the problem. Something's been, created to address that. Let's get it for you so that you can do your job safely. Let's not forget about innovation in updates and practices and approaches, right? There are so many learning resources out there. Of course, the Michigan Safety Conference is one of those many organizations, but you can hear how other people are doing things. Other people are approaching things. I want to challenge this is the way we've always done this mindset. There are innovations in practices and approaches every day. Collaborating with your peers, attending conferences, ours and others, are a great way to, stay on top of that innovation and that thought that thought leadership.
It's a good point, and the fact that we do have about 200 vendors that also are at the conference with the latest equipment and ideas and training. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they started building buildings with fall protection tie-off points. Back in the day, you really had a challenge to figure out where you're going to tie yourself off to when you're up on a roof. But now they're starting to realize that these things are needed. So safety has driven those kind of things, I think.
Yeah, prevention through design is a great approach, and it's something that we try to practice as much as we can. Building safer buildings, buildings that are safer to construct and buildings that are safer to operate after construction. We can think about those things. Obviously, especially with fall protection anchorages on existing buildings, we need to make sure that we maintain them and test them and certify them per our current rules. So sometimes that can be a stumbling block in that, but a lot of practices in that prevention through design approach that lead us to safer buildings.
Yeah, that's a start anyway. Because not everybody's on beam 100% of the time. They know how to do something and then they're just not thinking about it right then. And all of a sudden we make a mistake and unfortunately it might be a fatal one. So how does the conference provide inspiration and why is that important?
As you mentioned earlier, safety is a great field, and I think we do meaningful work, but we often don't do it with other safety professionals. Or if we do have a group, we're a small group. I have a team of 3 people that work in my occupational safety team. Um, we really are a community of professionals, though, and the safety conference allows us to get together to even just talk about our challenges, talk about the things that are going on in our careers, talk about the issues that we're facing, the pressures that we're trying to navigate. Talking to people who have similar issues and similar aspirations as you in delivering safety really energizes me. And I know that when I get back from the conference, I'm tired. It's been a full 2 days, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready to put some of the innovation I've learned back into practice.
And I'm learning a lot from the new safety folks that are coming out. I mean, I started this in the 70s, so you can imagine my age. But when I interviewed a couple of the younger safety people, it was interesting the focus on communication that we really didn't learn for quite a while that that was the most important thing. And getting to know your employees and feeling comfortable with them and them feeling comfortable with you, being personal with people. And I go, wow, that's something we wouldn't have thought of back in the 70s and 80s, getting into somebody's personal business. But the younger folks, they said, no, if you can't relate to somebody, you're not going to be credible with them. And I thought that was quite an insight that I learned from the younger folks that are getting into the field. I'd love to see more of them. Tell you
It's interesting when I look at accident investigations, and we ask our subcontractors and contractors when there's a contractor injury on campus to submit their paperwork and their reports for us after conducting their investigation. One of the common threads when we look at root cause analysis from our contractors is a breakdown in communication. So communication is always a vital part of what we do as we work together.
Absolutely. And it seems strange to have this as part of the conference, but it's become more and more important. Our security division has several programs. They're going to be talking about verbal diffusion, recognizing an at-risk employee, ways to address those kind of things. And I think it's going to be very interesting to realize that we have to go that route. We have to figure out ways to keep our people safe from outside or inside issues like that, where you've got an upset worker or just some kind of domestic issue and it comes into the workplace. Now we have to look over our shoulders all the time and we have to build it into our safety programs. And it's unfortunate that that's where we're at. So, are there any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
One of the things that we did this year as part of my theme is we did these challenge coins. The challenge coin is really a reminder to, and for those of you on YouTube, here's a look at the coin. It really is a reminder for me about the why we do this safety, right? And I've had this coin in my pocket since we gave them to our volunteers. It is about the important work we do and really the choose your own adventure that we have at the safety conference. I hope to highlight both the benefits of the conference and the benefits of the profession as we go forward with this theme. I'd like to challenge listeners to find their safety at the safety conference with us this year and moving forward, whatever that is and whatever your needs may be. And find me at the safety conference and tell me what you're finding. Tell me what safety blank that you're filling with this. And if you find me, tell me that. Maybe I'll have a challenge coin for our Find Your Safety theme for you. So I look forward to meeting so many of you this April at our safety conference.
And maybe we can publish all these different ideas of how people found their safety. Could only help.
It's all about the communication, right?
There you go. Our mission with the Michigan Safety Conference is to enhance workplace health and safety by sharing EHS best practices, provide education, and create a community of experts to help eliminate workplace injuries and fatalities. I'd like to thank Dr. Zach Hansmann, Occupational Safety Compliance Officer at Michigan State University. He can be reached at hansmann@msu.edu. The Michigan Safety Conference will be offering a full slate of classes, as you've heard, at its conference in Lansing, April 15th and 16th. If you have any questions about this podcast, would like to register for the 2025 Michigan Safety Conference, like to be a guest or sponsor of one of our podcasts, information can be found on our website at michsafetyconference.org. Thank you for listening to Safety Spectrum. This is Sheila Ide.